Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for coming. I know we're at the end of the day, at the last day of the summit, so I thank you all for being here. We're competing with some other things, but it's good to have some people in the room, and we also have some people online. So anyone watching online, thank you so much for joining us. We're glad that you can listen in, even though you're not here in Addis with us. So today, our topic is on integrating policy frameworks for sustainable and resilient livestock development in Africa. My name is Cramer. I work with the International Livestock Research Institute, and we're collaborating with partners of Mercy Corps, Jameel Observatory, the Kenya State Department of Livestock Development, and ILRI, GIZ, AICCRA, many other organizations for this event. So we're really glad to have you here. We have a nice event planned out for you today. So I think probably everybody in this room knows that livestock make a lot of contributions here in Africa. They contribute to food and nutrition security, to people's livelihoods, to environmental management. They provide safety nets in terms of crisis, and they also have a lot of cultural significance. But at the same time, they face a lot of challenges. Livestock keepers are dealing with disease issues, health challenges, both themselves and their animals, challenges with access to water, to land degradation, growing demand for animal source foods, and access to markets, and it's all exacerbated by climate change. So even though livestock are so significant for livestock keepers here in Africa, there's kind of weak policy integration to get their challenges and solutions integrated into policy frameworks. So what we want to do today is first we'll have a presentation from Fred Atieno, and what he'll present are findings from a policy analysis he conducted that was part of a LiveSys, a project we're implementing with GIZ and AICCRA and the Alliance of Biodiversity and CIAT. So he's going to share findings from that study, and then we're going to have a panel discussion around how do policies get integrated on the ground? What does it look like for livestock keepers and other value chain actors when they're trying to build their own livelihoods but also comply and implement government policies? So after the presentation, we'll invite the panel up on stage. We'll have some time for questions and answers. I don't know if we can take questions from the online people. We can. So if you're listening online, please feel free to type a question into the chat so that we can answer your questions as well. And then after the audience Q&A, I'll ask the panelists to just wrap up with one or two takeaways that they want people to leave the room with. So with all of that, I want to invite Fred Atieno on stage. So Fred is a Kenyan resilience expert with over 20 years experience in food security, climate action, and policy research. He has a PhD in climate change adaptation from the University of Nairobi, and he has a lot of expertise on the livestock and climate nexus in Africa. So let me hand over the microphone to him, and you can take it away, Fred. Welcome.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you, everyone in the room, all protocols observed. Yeah, mine is going to be a very brief overview of the findings from the study. So the study is Livestock, Climate, Biodiversity, and Gender, a continental policy integration analysis. Just to echo what Dr. Laura said, despite recognizing the importance of livestock, the intersection between climate, biodiversity, and gender is actually making it more complex. This is necessitated the assessment to underscore the quality and the kind of integration that exists. What did we do? We analyzed 5 policy framework complemented by online survey to member states, and we had nationally determined contributions, adaptation plans, and these ones are the published ones. So it's not about, okay, we are developing it and it's not officially released. And then the biodiversity strategies and land degradation neutrality reports and the livestock policies. So the thematic areas here are livestock. We looked at production, management, and climate, both adaptation and mitigation. So when you see the next slide about the findings, you look at the climate action now encompasses both adaptation and mitigation. Then, as much as say, oh, gender is playing a crucial role in livestock production, what are the policy addressing that? I'll spend a little bit time on this. Mostly on the reddish or brownish color. If you look at the first column, we have the policies, frameworks analyzed, and the thematic areas on the horizontal. Sustainable livestock versus the policies. You'll see that even livestock dedicated policies are scoring low. Why? Because the policies that we retrieved and got from focal points are addressing mostly sectoral, like diseases. You have a breeding strategy, then you say you have a livestock policy. That's not holistic or comprehensive. A case in hand also is the issue of transformation in livestock, which we are talking about off-take production, but we're not talking about management. I would like to still stay there. Biodiversity. Look at the pointer is not coming, but if you look at livestock policies and vis-a-vis the thematic area biodiversity, it is 1.04 score. Why? Yet we have livestock feeding or grazing on plants, but the policies are not addressing biodiversity in that context. The same, if you look at, let me go to climate-related policy here, the NAPs, that is the National Adaptation Plans. Livestock-related adaptation actions are rarely addressed. Two, the main one coming out is the gender. Gender in adaptation plans is minimally addressed, but I would urge the participants not to look at, okay, my country, no. It is holistic, this is the mean across the continent. So even if you're scoring 3, but one is scoring 0, then you're finding the average coming low. And you look at NDCs, again, while we expected to be higher because of the accelerated development growth and all that, but you find livestock is minimally also addressed. There's a lot of aspects on green growth and energy, but not much on livestock. But let's not focus so much on the negative sides. What are the positive sides? Under land degradation neutrality reports, there's a lot talking about relationship between climate, how they're contributing to land degradation, and emissions coming in. So if you look at this picture, it brings us to that initial point that integration is necessary. Again, I'm coming back to the livestock policies. We should be addressing both if we talk about the meat strategy, but how is producing the meat? Red meat strategy, no. Milk strategy. Let's look at the holistic arena of it, okay? The same as if we look at, again, gender in biodiversity strategies is also very low. I would free to come back to this. Now, what are the few recommendations that we come up with to enhance cross-sectoral integration, strengthen climate integration, especially in livestock, because we are more fixated on production or rather increasing output, but not on sustainability. And then the biodiversity. In here, if you recall, or if you know, we are talking about conflicts. Livestock, wildlife conflict. But what about livestock and plants? So we should not just be addressing conflict, but looking at the coexistence. Women's role in livestock systems. And here we looked at also the aspect of data, how we're collecting data, how we're analyzing it, and also looking at the multi roles that women or rather play. As much as I will give an example of the milk value chain. Who are the main players in the milk sales? Around homesteads, you'll only find women, but they're also going back home to prepare meals. So what are we doing around that line? Lumping NAPs and NDCs is to focus on livestock-based climate solutions. And adaptation, if you refer to the earlier slide, you'll find that livestock is not addressed much in adaptation strategies. I think also that echoes what is the role in the payment for ecosystem services. What is livestock contributing to this? As much as you say, oh, seed dispersions, fertilization of the rangelands and all that, but we are not taking that into consideration. And I think this gives us a good ground to start. What would we takeaways for policy development? Integrated design. So if we start this from the beginning, not retrospective, saying, okay, how can biodiversity strategy now link with livestock policy? Capacity building, if we improve on the systematic building of capacity on that, and then coordination framework and MRVs. I would like to stop here, but I'm open to more questions and interact further. I would like to hand over back to Dr. Laura. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Fred, for that excellent presentation. So Fred did a lot more work. His report contains more analysis. He did a deep dive into 3 specific countries to look more at the policy coherence. So when we have that report finalized, we'll make it available on the ILRI website and others so that everybody can see. So could I have a little help getting some chairs on stage? Thank you so much. 5 chairs would be great. So now what we're going to do is I want to call up the panelists. Thank you so much. And then we'll get into the questions for each of them. And you know, I hear it a lot inside events like this, that we have a lot of great policies. Our countries have policies. We have AU policies. We have regional economic community policies. But how are those really being implemented on the ground? So the panelists who are coming up will, oh, can you just put it on the last one? Thanks. We'll really talk about what's happening on the ground and how does that link to how it relates to the policies that are in place. So I want to first call up Tigist Worku. She works with us at the International Livestock Research Institute, and she's a research officer there, and she has a lot of expertise in social issues and participatory action research across climate adaptation and agriculture. And here in Ethiopia, she coordinates ILRI's work on the Adaptation Pioneers Initiative. And then I'll call up Senbeto Funte. He's a livestock and market systems expert with more than 20 years of experience across the Horn of Africa. And he's the deputy director and technical lead for Mercy Corps' regional livestock program, providing strategic leadership to transform livestock markets. Welcome. I want to call up Dr. Tahira Mohamed. She's a social scientist specializing in pastoralism, climate change, and social protection in the Horn of Africa. And she leads regional partnerships and engagement for the Jameel Observatory and has published widely on resilience and drought management. And finally, I want to call up Bernard Kimoro. He has a degree in tropical animal production and serves as the head of the Climate Change and Livestock Sustainability Unit. I always get that wrong. Is it unit? section at the State Department of Livestock Development in Kenya, and he's leading efforts to move the Kenyan greenhouse gas inventory methodology to Tier 2 for livestock, and has over 20 years of experience in livestock value chain development and climate policy. So welcome so much to all of you. I'm going to have a seat as well. And I want to just open with one question for each of you. You can speak for 2 or 3 minutes each on what are the opportunities for integrating policies around livestock adaptation, biodiversity, climate change, those ones that Fred was mentioning as some are more aligned than others. But what are those opportunities for really aligning them, and how does that play out in practice? So maybe I'll start with Tigist at the end.
I think this is working. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, Laura, for inviting me to this panel. So livestock across Africa, livestock are central to rural livelihood, nutrition, and local identities. But they are vulnerable to climate shocks, land degradation, and also policy neglect. But the good thing is that there are opportunities to integrate livestock, climate change, and biodiversities, and these opportunities are already coming from the ground up. So in our work at ILRI on adaptation pioneer initiatives, we have seen that farmers are not only adopting, but they are also innovating. So when their locally grounded innovations are supported with the right policy and extension system, then they will spread and the innovations effectively. So to support these innovations, we use the pioneer positive deviant approach, where we identify households who are succeeding with the climate stresses, and we help them to share their innovations. Such as homemade feed concentrate, in low-cost livestock home preparation, or biodiversity-friendly feed systems. So in Ethiopia and Kenya, this farmer-to-farmer field day has been proven that it's a very powerful platform to share peer knowledge. For example, in Kenya, around 45 pioneers has spread improved climate smart practices to 15,000 households in 2 years. So, but this kind of results does not come by accident, and it happens by national and regional policies. Recognize farmers' knowledge are central, and an extension system are responsive and resourced well. So the approaches like Farmer Field School and Living Lab are also showing how we move from the top-down extension training to participatory, inclusive model that truly integrates adaptation, livestock, and biodiversity. So the opportunity is clear. We can break down the silos between climate change, adaptation, and environment, and build a cross-sectoral framework that empower innovators. So if we do this, a livestock system will be a key lever instead of obstacle for climate resilience and biodiversity conservation and sustainable rural development. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tigist. Senbeto?
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. For us, as Mexico, have been implementing climate adaptation program in Horn of Africa for decades, and our learning is from ups and down. Sometimes we overlook the policy aspect and focus on the production, and then gradually we learn it and then clearly understood how we can really integrate policy aspect in our program design. For that, the good example is the regional livestock program that currently I'm leading technically, and the regional livestock program is focused on the production, productivity, market, and also embedded the policy element, because without clearly integrating policy aspect, also pushing the policy operationalization, ensuring climate adaptation in the livestock is difficult. So what we picked, the regional livestock program, Ethiopia, Kenya, and Somalia, cross-border focused and livestock trade corridor given into account. So within that umbrella, one big thing came out in the program design was increased production. But when you think increased production, in Horn of Africa, range is the biggest. The range is the biggest source of feed to support. When you see the range, there are different policies. When you see Ethiopia, Ethiopia's range land strategy and policy, Kenya the same, ISO policy, Somalia is slightly not clear by some policy. But the issue is, range pastoral is moving from one country to another, border is porous, but the policies are not harmonized. So what we included as this program is how harmonization and domestication implementation of rangeland management policy and strategy in IGAD region, mainly in Ethiopia, Kenya, and Somalia. That is under implementation. The thinking is, if we bring in the policy side, harmonized in those corridor area, will not over-degrade the rangeland by pushing the livestock production. The second piece is, the climate adaptation again required healthy herd. If the animal is healthy, it's productive, then the producer can be adaptive to the changing climate. So again, we pick animal health intervention as a critical element to increase production and productivity. But the issue came yet again is, how is the policy aspect? This livestock, this has no boundary because animal is moving from one country to another. So the thinking came out in the program design is, how can we bring into policy integration? What are the Kenya policy look like in cross-boundary disease control? What Ethiopia policy look like? How the Kenya policy? How can we bring it down into joint vaccination, treatment, and control? IGAD is with us by chance, because being with IGAD, with this program implementation was helping us. The third piece of the policy aspect we take into consideration is, we are talking about the livestock, we are talking about the production. This product has to be marketed. And then when we think about marketing, you can't maximize the livestock potential by confining the local trade. So trade policy has to be taken into account. This program taken into account how the free African continental free trade policy can be understood and also managed to help the livestock producer. And the last piece, the policy aspect we taken into account is climate preparedness and response. You know, we are talking about production, productivity. To ensure productivity, producer has to be capable enough or informed enough in a disaster risk management capacity. And also, because of boundaryless drought, if Ethiopia is good enough and Kenya is bad, or Kenya is very good enough in the disaster response, but Ethiopia is bad, no animal moving from Ethiopia side affect the Kenya system. So this policy harmonization taken into account, we are currently implementing this program. I think we hopefully, along the line, this approach or thinking will play the critical role in a national development plan, as well as climate change adaptation for the livestock.
Thank you so much. Tahira?
Yes, thank you very much. I want to begin by quoting the livestock lost between 2020-2023 in the Horn of Africa drought, and that is 13.2 million livestock lost. And that is in Somalia, Ethiopia, and Kenya alone. What does this mean? Despite this region having these policies, including NDC, NAPS, all the policies that Fred presented, are we on the right direction, or is policies influencing our action? What opportunities are there? So to answer this question, I'll mention three things. Number one, there's big disconnect between policy and research. Is research influencing the policies? How is the research evidence or the outcome taken up by the policymakers? That is number one. Number two, to strengthen what Fred told us about the capacity. Whose capacity are we building? Is it the capacity of the farmer, or the capacity of the policymakers themselves? Do they even understand this scenario? Or the capacity of all the stakeholders in this? Later on, when we go to the second portion, I'll talk about what the Jameel Observatory is working on as in regard to capacity. And then another thing, I was involved in a research called Breaking Down Silos. This is between the climate change adaptation, resilience, and humanitarian building system in the Horn of Africa regarding food security. And what does this breaking silos means? Like every operation have their own strategy, every operation have their own strategic plans and frameworks and all these things. How are we aligning our operation? If we're not aligning, then we end up doing the same thing at a very minimal scale, not being able to influence the outcome that we want, especially the livestock loss and the livelihood loss that we are experiencing, despite having this in places. And then one of the outcome from this breaking down silos is the opportunities is in incentivizing the actors, incentivizing different policy framework to align their activities so that they'll all end up achieving the goals that they aspire achieving. And finally, an enabling factor is investing in capacity. Why is this important? Because capacity is a bridge between a vision, the plans that we have, and the implementation. Because even if you have a beautiful vision, Vision 2030, Vision 2060, or Agenda 2062, if you don't have a capacity not just for the community, for the actors, for everyone, for the government, for the national institution, then we are all talking and not, seeing the result. I'll stop here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Laura, and thank you also the fellow panelists. What I'm going to say probably is the thing I want to have you remember. If there's anything that I'll say that is beyond here and you'll forget, you're forgiven. But what I'm going to say right now is the most important. If you don't have livestock in your policies, you don't get investments. All right? So it is critical that we have livestock either at the national development policies, strategies, and plans, or we have livestock in climate policies, strategies, and plans. Why is that important? Then you are showing that livestock is a priority in your country, all right? In most of the countries that we are looking at in Africa, and Africa, 55% of Africa is actually only good for livestock, yeah? But the rest, yeah, we can do a bit of crop farming, we have forests and all that, but 55% of Africa is actually suitable for livestock. You look at from the north of the Sahara coming to the Horn of Africa region, that is a livestock area, and also to the Southern African region. 250 million pastoralists in Africa depend on livestock. So it is critically important that we have livestock both in the national development strategies and plans and also in the climate policies. So the opportunities are, when you look at livestock, in the fact that one, livestock is very important in the GDP of these countries. If you look at the Horn of Africa right now, we are doing a lot of imports of animals, live animals, into the Middle East. That shows how important livestock is. If you look at the Southern African region, Botswana, for example, Namibia, are very important exporters of meat to the EU market. That also shows how important livestock is to those particular countries. So it's vitally important that we recognize the importance of livestock in the economy. And that is an opportunity for us to be able to bring in or integrate policies into different levels, as I've said. The other thing is the recognition, and I'm happy that Tahira here has talked about what we had in the Horn of Africa region. Kenya lost 2.5 million animals. Now, if you look at that and you quantify in terms of economic value and the amount that is required to bring in the recovery to the pastoralist, that again is a very high cost. So it shows that there is opportunity for us to integrate the same policies that you're talking about, livestock into these different policies that we are referring to. So it's also very important. The interface between livestock and the biodiversity, I think it came out very clearly from the report that Fred has given. Look at the Horn of Africa, where we come from. There is a lot of degradation taking place, right? Some of us are saying is because we have now livestock numbers. I'm not very sure that is the case, because when I look at the livestock numbers in Kenya, especially the cattle, the population is actually going down because of climate-related shocks. You look at, okay, the small ruminants are increasing, yeah, but there's an element of degradation that is taking place. Sometimes you only look at degradation in terms of the loess of soil, but look at the kind of invasive species that are coming up. In Kenya, we have the madenge or prosopis. We are also having now various invasive species taking place. That is degradation. It tells you about what is happening to that particular soil. So we need to have a way of ensuring that we have integrated and harmonized livestock policies with the other land management policies which are there in the country. So what we have done in Kenya is we have made sure that, recognizing the fact that livestock is very important, we have integrated livestock at all levels. If you look at our NAP, for example, we have livestock as very high in the NAP. In the NDC, livestock contributes 28% of national emissions. So as part of the emission reduction strategy in Kenya, we have to have livestock in the NDC, and that is what we have done. We also have a specific sectoral strategy, which is called the Kenya Climate Smart Agriculture Strategy, with an implementation framework where livestock interventions are clearly stated to address the issues of adaptation and mitigation. And currently we are in the final stages of developing specific livestock roadmap, which we are calling the Livestock Climate Change Action Plan and Roadmap. So that is the integration. I'll give examples of the projects that we have benefited, maybe in the second response.
Thank you so much. So I really like how you've all kind of highlighted the importance of policy integration at different levels, from the farmer level, you know, being able to have enabling farmer extension systems to help farmers share those innovations, to the national level, having livestock in the NDCs and other policies, and even to the regional level, being able to share and harmonize policies across countries to avoid disaster and drought issues. So I think we're on a good path in terms of seeing the importance of integrating these things. So I want to delve a little bit deeper. The first question is for Tahira. So for you, how is the Jameel Observatory, and you can tell us just a little bit about Jameel Observatory, how are you working to bring together different actors for early warning and early action in pastoral areas?
Yes, thank you very much. Jameel Observatory for Food Security Early Action is a research center at the International Livestock Research Institute based in Nairobi, and it's a research for action center. What does that mean? Jameel Observatory work at the interface of three issues. Number one is on dialogue, on research, and on capacity. And I want to start with capacity. What is the center, the observatory doing as regard to capacity? Number one, through its flagship project called the Dryland Futures Academy, it's investing in different knowledge pathway. One is a short courses like MOOC that the policymakers can learn on the matters of drylands, early warning, food security in the region. And the other pathway for learning through the Dryland Futures Academy is through career courses for for the expert for learning about dryland matters. And this one, for example, we are trying to establish an MOU with Kenya School of Government to see how courses will be delivered at the Kenya School of Government for the mid-level managers, for the development actors, or for the government civil servant on understanding matters on dryland, early warning, food security system. Those are the two issues. And then three, on capacity, through the Pastoralist Parliamentary Group, Kenya's PPG, we support the parliamentary summit by contributing technically in terms of enhancing what is the need of the dryland in terms of early warning, food security, how can evidence support the policy? Because now from the latest summit in 2024, there were resolution and the president declared that they are going to establish, for example, national livestock board, which was established. So as observatory, we provide capacity to this board, like how can we inform, how can evidence research that ILRI is doing and all our partners are doing inform the policies that the National Livestock Board is going to implement. That is on capacity. And secondly, on research, we commission research through our partners like Save the Children and others. We commission a research called Dangerous Delay 2. This research was looking at why, despite elaborate early warning information, the actions were delayed, because between 2011 and 2022, there were more than 10 early warning that came, but the action came too late. And we lost a lot of livelihood, impacting nutrition, food security, and all these issues in the region. Those are the in areas of research. And secondly, on research, we have quite a number of PhD students, around 10 of them, and some of them are looking at, when we talk about including local community, what does local community mean? What does the local early warning information mean? What does indigenous information mean? So we commission PhD research on different forms of climate information services, on different forms of early warning and anticipatory action. But above all, we do what we call the community of practice. This community of practice, we bring actors in the dryland space working on early warning, food security, and identify a challenge question. What is that difficult thing for the practitioners in this space? Once that challenge question is identified, then we form what is called impact collaboration. We collaborate with those partners, we finance that challenge question, and we do research, and then we have that outcome. And we've been having annual community of practice meeting since the inception of Jameel Observatory in 2021, and we had recently one in 2025. Here in Addis, and this brought together all the conversation of where are we going, where do we stop, and what are the challenges we are facing, and this practically influence how we do research, plus also link it to the policy space.
Thank you so much. I think that's, yeah, it's really good work that you're doing. I'm super interested in the Dryland Academy, Dryland Futures Academy. So I think it's, yeah, it's excellent, all the different actors that you're bringing together. Senbeto, I know Mercy Corps is doing a lot of work around finance and pastoralism. So can you tell us how do conducive policy environments help you create these blended financial mechanisms, especially for small and medium enterprises in pastoral areas?
Okay, thank you. See, the Mercy Corps heavily, deeply work on the system, market system-based approach. That is a center for the programming built to the resilience part. And the market system development approach core focused on, one is a system change. And the second is increasing the private sector investment to support for the climate change adaptation and mitigation. And I think just to before move to the policy challenge, it will be worthy for me to give some practical example what we are doing. We, as part of private sector engagement and supporting and catalyzing private sector investment, we heavily use a blended financing mechanism. That's blending financing mechanism mainly focused on how the private sector contribute and also grant funding can de-risk some of the challenge private sector facing, to move into the last mile. The basic focus is the pro-poor, and then the climate change adaptation things not intended or focused for our purpose to be float under the private sector actor, but pushing that to the last mile. How that thing reach to the last mile. So to push private sector actor to last mile, we try to de-risk the factor that limit. The quick example for the last, before USAID terminated the USAID funded program, we able to co-invest nearly 78 businesses, small businesses along the livestock supply chain. That is more focused on, one is production and productivity aspect, that is animal health, feed, fodder, and related. The second is a market aspect. The thinking is the animal health side, when we think on the co-investment, most of the animal health service providers sit on the town. So they are comfortable on the town business, and they are not interested to go to the last mile where the livestock producer demanding the service. So what we did is we co-create with those business. But the first thing is sit together, co-create, discuss what is their need, what is our need, how can we push themselves as well as reaching to the target householders who are looking for the service. So for that piece, business start seeing the value. Commonly we go for 50% co-investment. And then when we push them 50% co-investment, business start seeing the value and then start stimulating, even bringing to the new business. The animal health is a good one example. The other practical example, the big example is we co-create. Mainly we use a co-creating as a critical element, because if you are not co-create, if you push something to top down, no one will accept, So we co-create with a business. We co-create with a one big milk processing business. That's a good example to highlight if you hear. Milk processing business, the thinking behind is to support smallholder producer to be adaptive. There has to sell their product to the market. And then to stimulate, to help them to sell the product into market, there has to be processing industries nearer to them. How we move that forward? So we discuss with the business, and then business show the interest to collaborate. Business come with their own equity money, and then Mexico invested on the critical area that the business is fear to enter into that landscape. Again, because of the bigger investment for the business, that linkage also facilitated the lease finance from the bank. So the money come from different dimensions, from the business, from the bilateral funded program money, and from the bank side, and that helping the business, the producer, and also the surrounding community. That's the second example. I think there is more example related to livestock aggregation and trade aspect. But in that short program, we just saw one, when we engage the 78 business, the 78 business is more focused on demonstrating the business model, showing the business model. And that showing the business model, again, start contributing for copying the others. When the other businesses start copying, private sector again start investing on the climate change adaptation. So that multiple replicating effect is going on. The last example is this, even the shortly started regional livestock program. We try to engage nearly 33 business within short period of time, Ethiopia, Kenya, and Somalia, along the livestock. And that's cost us around 330,000 USD. And the private sector for that co-invested 380,000. That is excluding the existing initial investment. The investment is for added. But the central piece for this is why and how the private sector showed the investment is co-design, co-creation, and pushing them to see the critical leveraging point for their growth. You know, we want the smallholder issues, they want their profit issues. Where can we match is a critical point. But when we're doing this one, there are policy-related challenge. You know, when start market system programming, the system change is a critical thing. The program envision to see. But when you see the Horn of Africa, because of the drought, large number of people looking for the immediate handout, including the government side. Government also want to emergency response thing to respond immediate because that is government commitment. Earlier, even the donor side, we are a bit challenged on picking this modality. When we say, let's go invest with the business, system change, and like there was a pushback. But gradually, that understanding came. Now we are, USAID was very appreciating the last part of the program. We are currently implementing Swiss Development Corporation as well as the French funding money. And this both donor also appreciate moving the co-investment modality, catalyzing the private sector engagement as a critical ways to adaptation for the climate change. The other challenge side on the policy challenge, this is not opportunity side, but it's that challenges moved to opportunity was the government stakeholder mindset. We just push, we want to work with the business, we want to change the system, then they say, the business people are already rich. They have money in their pocket. Why you invest for them? Why don't you give this money to a smallholder producer? Our justification was, a smallholder producer is the person who more suffer to access service at the last mile than the rich. If we support the animal health business to open the shop in the last mile, the poor who has only money to buy drug is more beneficiary than the rich man who have money to travel and come to town to buy the drug. So I think that without justification, now Ethiopia side, you know, one good example is Afar region in Ethiopia. It was highly resisted, the private sector engagement, co-investment modality. But lastly, they say go with Mexico modality. They are showing the example, the things are moving. So I think these are the two critical challenges, but learning from those challenges and the issue, now we are pulling things up. One thing is this regional livestock program is corridor based. Ethiopia, Kenya, Somalia, Ethiopia, Somalia, Kenya. We are now supporting the market actor along that corridor to develop corridor investment plan that identified the problem. What are the livestock sector problem? The trade, the production, input, road, everything. Now we are pushing them to develop corridor investment plan. Once the corridor investment plan is developed, the thinking is to advocate for the implementation of the development plan. That from whatever money come from, the money can come from the private, it come from the public, it come from the donor. So that is a piece we are at the moment engaging. To finalize my piece, I think still even if we are here and there, we are far away in catalyzing or pushing the private sector to play a role in the climate change or adaptation. Even one of the state in Mexico conducted and released the report shows only satisfied 3% need of the private sector. So I think more effort is required. Government also expected to invest on the public good to support the private sector engagement. Private sector livestock trader require good livestock, and the good livestock depend on the rangeland. Government expected to also significantly invest on the rangeland. I think I stop here.
Thank you so much. And I really like that example of how you're reaching the farmers through last mile SMEs. And but Tigist, you're doing it a different way. You're working directly with farmers and helping them share their innovations among themselves. So can you explain how can national policies support that method of local innovators really sharing what they've come up with using local materials, adapting to local conditions? How can governments help support that?
Yeah, national policies are critical in amplifying or unlocking local innovations. The solutions that we are looking for are already implemented by farmers, but what we need is a policy that help or support pioneers to share, scale and sustain those innovations. At ILRI, we work with adaptation pioneers who already leading climate smart practices. So if we support those pioneers to share their experience to the wider community through structures like extension service, local networks or media, they will really make a big difference. But to share their experience in Kenya and Ethiopia, one of the effective tools that we use is farmer-to-farmer field days. And these farmer-to-farmer field days are organized, facilitated by the pioneers themselves at their farm for their communities. So they demonstrate practical solutions like silage making and climate resilient forage mix, and also feed diversification, feed conservation, or breed diversification. So these are not theoretical, but these are proven and lived experiences. So that's what makes them very powerful. So these events are very cost effective, inclusive, and especially when that it builds trust, especially when it is supported by extension agents. To scale these pioneers or innovators' innovative practices, the national policy can support in several ways. One is to institutionalize the local learning models, like pioneer positive, embedding pioneer positive deviant approach or farmer field school into the national extension strategy, and also train and resource extension agents. Then they can act a facilitator and also a coach for their peer learning. And the other is investing in community communication tools, or communication tools like a co-designed farmer's handbook, audio book, visuals, or radio programs that will help sustain and scale successful local practices. And the other suggestion would be decentralizing decision making that will help local government and research centers to plan and create an environment where they can help the community with social learning events, and also invest in innovation hubs. So the last suggestion would be promoting inclusive practices, especially for women and youths, and also people with disabilities and communities at the IDP centers. Those people are mostly neglected, so that would help a lot. So we have seen this in practice, especially in Ethiopia. Despite the security constraints in North Shawa zone, Amhara region, the pioneers managed to spread around or to reach out through their network with extension agent support around 13,000 people or households with a code-developed farmer's handbook that is distributed by them with the help of the extension agents. So these are a kind of result that happens when national framework aligns with local innovations. And if policies recognize farmers' knowledge as farmers as a knowledge holder and creates a system that listens and learn from them, then it can build a resilient and sustainable livestock system across the nation. Thank you.
Thanks, Tigist, thanks. So I think we're expecting a lot from government in terms of providing these enabling environments. And we heard Fred's presentation, you know, there are some bright spots, there are some spots that need more work, but I want to know from your perspective, in Kenya, where are you proud of what you've achieved? Can you give us a concrete example of something that you're really happy to say you brought things together, you integrated some of these different themes, and you've seen results as coming out of that?
Yeah, thank you very much. It's apparent the role of government in terms of creating the enabling environment. It's a very tired statement that we always give, but nevertheless very important activity that must be done. It's very clear from the discussion that is coming out here. But what I'm also hearing is the fact that when we come up with these policies and strategies and good enabling environment, we need to be able to be inclusive, ensure participation of the communities or the actors that are involved. And of course, what is also coming out very clearly is that now we need to look beyond national boundaries and have policies that can also be able to cover transboundary aspects for us to create that enabling environment. It's not just within the country, but it can go beyond into the regions and even to the continent. So in Kenya, I mentioned already that we have a very strong policy framework. Yeah, from the national level, Kenya is one of the countries with the richest, and I challenge you to go and search the richest policy environment. Not just in the continent, but I guess in the world. We have a lot of policies, some that you have not even implemented, they're in the shelves, some that have been borrowed like by countries such as Namibia, which borrowed a model of Kenya Meat Commission, and they have Botswana Meat Commission, and they implemented. So we have a very robust system in terms of policy framework. So we have the Kenya Climate Smart Agriculture Strategy and Implementation Framework 2017-2026. It's coming up to its last year, next year, which has enabled us to come up with a lot of investments in the country. The first investment we had was a Kenya Climate Smart Agriculture project. This was a $150 million USD project that covered the 21 ASAL counties of Kenya. Yeah, bringing in climate smart agricultural practices that enabled adaptation and mitigation, and also enabled research, which is often forgotten. Yeah, which is often forgotten when you come up with these kind of projects. Beyond that, we also had another project which was called National Agriculture and Rural Inclusive Growth Project. Also, those two were World Bank funded projects. In 2022, so those ones came in 2018, immediately after we put in the strategy. In 2022, we then developed another project, which is a Green Climate Fund project, which is called Towards Ending Drought Emergencies. Yeah, which is covering aspects of course, dealing with the land management issues. There are three actually partners. We have IUCN, which is one of them. We have NDMA, and we also have the State Department. So they are looking at the continuum in terms of addressing adaptation challenges through what we call landscape restoration. That was a smaller kind of project covering only about 10 ASAL counties and supported by $35 million US. Now, I would like to look at a project that is covering 4 countries: Kenya, Ethiopia, Djibouti, and Somalia. There's a project we have which is called De-risking, Inclusion, and Value Enhancement for pastoralists in the Horn of Africa region. This is a $450 million USD project, which is covering several aspects. The first one is what we call the index-based livestock insurance. And we seek, for example, in Kenya, to cover almost 500,000 pastoralist households through what we call the index-based livestock insurance, to ensure that the livestock, which is an asset, is not lost. Beyond that, they have a second component that is called market linkages, which is supposed to ensure that we are developing, for example, several aspects: fodder production, we have the meat processing, we have the feedlots coming in to be able to ensure pastoralists are selling their animals, and they have that resilience that my colleague from Mercy Corps talked about. Currently, we also have a regional project which has been approved by the Green Climate Fund, 400 million USD, covering Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, and Rwanda, which is going to address adaptation and mitigation challenges in the dairy sector. It's called Dairy Interventions for Mitigation and Adaptation, or DAIMA in short. So you can see the benefit of having a policy framework and how you can support the investment within the country. And we see more is going to come as long as we are able to integrate the regional policies that are there.
Thank you so much, and I really like ending on that note. I did promise audience Q&A. We have run out of time, unfortunately, but we are a small enough group that we can mingle down here and answer any questions you might have left. If there's any online, I will get them from the team and try to answer those as well with the panelists. So I want to thank you all for your contributions. Thank you to Fred for his presentation, and thanks to all of you for listening. And we hope these conversations and action on the ground will continue going forward. Thank you.